to being appointed as Assistant Secretary, Mr. Gibbs was in several positions like the Louisiana Division of Probation and Parole, including Probation and Parole Deputy Director, Program Manager, District Manager. He managed programs involving work relief, sex, sex offender registration and notification. He has worked in the correction field for almost 32 years. And he graduated from right here, LSU, in Baton Rouge, with a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice. And the only thing that I know about LSU, since I'm a Jaguar, went to Southern, I helped to integrate the library at LSU. Bring it on, Tiger. Let's give him applause as he comes up.
Good morning. And let me just also say that I'm part Jaguar as well. While I was at LSU, I did cross-registration at Southern University, so I consider myself to actually be from both universities. Let me just say that you've heard some information this morning regarding reentry. But from where I stand, what we're doing with the reentry is so very important, and it's why is reentry important? And for me, it's a matter of right, the 3 R's, right, wrong, and reality. Now, I know wrong don't start with an R, but I've been hanging around a Baptist minister, and it sounds better. And actually, I got that from a good friend of mine who is departed, Mr. Michael Ellaby. Michael and I would travel around the various venues, and he would always use that phrase, right, wrong, and reality. And that's what reentry is about. Just a little bit about corrections in that big ship that corrections is. It's a big ship, and it's going to take a while to turn that ship. We have 9 state prisons currently. As Ms. Powers indicated, we closed 3 prisons over the course of the last 3 years. And out of those 9 prisons, they're responsible for, of that 41,000, we have about 21,000 that are serving time in our state prisons. Also, part of our system is the local jails, which we have about 22,000 that are serving time on the local level in local jails. And what's unique about that is not just at 1 or 2 local jails. We have some 100 local jails that offenders are spread out all over the state of Louisiana as part of our criminal justice system. We also have probation and parole that Ms. Powers mentioned, some 70,000 individuals that are under probation and parole supervision. And we have 21 districts of probation and parole that's part of our corrections department. Reentry, again, it's about people. Who are the people? They are mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and uncles and aunts, nieces and nephews. They're not people from outer space. They're just like you and me. And what we often think of when we talk about reentry is people that's going to jail, going to prison. They're out of sight, they're out of mind, and they're not coming back. But the fact remains is that most of them will be returned to our society. That is why reentry is so very important. We have to look at what's happening with a full gambit. When we say it's about people, it's about victims. Every crime, no matter what that crime is, in my estimation, there's no victimless crime. So we have to think about the victims. Part of those victims also is the offender's family. They become collateral victims of offenders that are incarcerated. So as we look at reentry, it's about community. And Ms. Powers hit up on it earlier. As individuals return to communities, we need to have communities that step up to the plate and be ready to receive these individuals. And of course, I'm recalling a conversation that I had with W. Wilson Good several years back, and Mr. Good was the first African-American mayor of the city of Philadelphia. And he asked me, well, Waylon, what is the best reentry program? And I thought and I pondered for a while, and I know that so many of our offenders are saddled with substance abuse problems. So I said, well, probably substance abuse. He said, well, yeah, they have substance abuse problem, and treatment is important. But Waylon, let me tell you, the best reentry program is no entry into the criminal justice system at all. So I think that we have to look at it from that standpoint and do more pretrial diversion type programs for offenders that warrant pretrial diversion. The old saying that my grandmother used to tell me is, it's easy to get in trouble, but it's very hard to get out of trouble. So as you get embroiled in that criminal justice system, as you come in and you sink deeper and deeper and deeper in that prison pipeline, it becomes tougher and tougher to stay out of that prison pipeline. And could someone help me with the slides? Okay. All right, here, when we look at incarceration, and Ms. Powers hit up on it early also, is that we lead the entire world in the per capita rate of incarceration. When you look at that slide, 1 in 100 U.S. adults are incarcerated. That doesn't tell the whole picture. Try to wrap your mind around 2.3 million individuals that are incarcerated in the United States of America. There you begin to see the magnitude of the problem that we face with incarceration of individuals. And let me just say, some individuals are incarcerated. They have committed some very heinous crimes, and they deserve to be there, and they deserve to be there for a very long time. But when we look at what has been transpiring over the course of the decades in our country, we have far too many individuals that have committed nonviolent offenses that are occupying part of that 2.3 million that's incarcerated. You look at 1 in 15 African American men that are occupying most of our jail cells. I think that we can do better. As I alluded to earlier, 95% of offenders will eventually return to our communities. Your community, my community, your family's community. That is why reentry is so very important, that we begin to ask that question when they come into our correction system: what is needed to improve the likelihood of success for that person when they return to our society? That's what it's about. Not giving them $10 in a bus ticket, and now it's $20 in a bus ticket. We have to make certain that we provide them with opportunity for change. When you look at also 700,000 individuals that released from state and federal prisons annually, that's a lot of individuals, no matter how you slice it. 9 million cycling in and out of local jails. That's a lot of people. That's why reentry is important. We need to try and catch as many of them, as I stated early on, when they're at that local level, when they're committed that misdemeanor offense. We need to try and have stopgap measures early on that keep them from deeply penetrating the system. Look at 2 in 3 released prisoners will be rearrested within 3 years. In Louisiana, we track recidivism 5 years out, and if you haven't came back in 5 years, then we consider that to be successful reentry. We know that individuals that are releasing, that critical point when they get out is that first 18 months of release. You start to see whenever they get out, that first month you see it going up, second month coming in. It peaks at about 18 months. That is why it's so very important that whenever the returning citizens do return to our society, that communities are ready to receive these individuals. Corrections. We heard a lot about budget. We have almost a $600 million, a little over $600 million budget for the cost of incarceration here in the state of Louisiana. Corrections, that $600 million, that's more about custody, control, security, safety. That is where the bulk of our budget goes. And we have a little less than 2% of our budget that actually goes to rehabilitative programming. So when you say the idea of corrections being correcting behavior, that is our charge, but that is not our major charge. It's about that individual accepting responsibility. It's about communities being able to assist those individuals, preferably prior to them coming into the criminal justice system. But surely after they are released, we need to be ready to receive those returning citizens. Next slide, please. Could you go back? Okay, let's go to the next one. I think it's a little bit out of order. But when you look at the implications for Louisiana, about 41,000 incarcerated, and I hit upon some of this earlier. Actually, that 15,000 figure was the number that we released for many years. Over the course of the last 3 years, it's averaging about 17,000 that we actually release on an annual basis. And one of the biggest bang for the bucks, of course, is probation and parole supervision. It's a little less than $3 a day to supervise someone under probation and parole supervision. But as the prosecutor alluded to earlier, you know, we're not going to be able to brick and mortar our way out of this problem. We're not going to be able to arrest our way out of this problem. We're never going to be able to hire enough probation and parole officers to do what needs to be done. So it's about being smart on crime, not tough on crime, smart on crime. Next slide. And as we look at reentry, it's a public safety issue, but it's also a behavioral health issue. When we look at individuals that are incarcerated, here in the state of Louisiana, somewhere in the vicinity of about 78% admit to having some type of substance abuse problem that led them to their criminality. They may be incarcerated for a burglary, but in most instances, they committed that burglary to support a drug habit. So as Secretary LeBlanc has said on numerous occasions, the number one enemy is substance abuse. If we could somehow solve that substance abuse problem, we would get a lot at the heart of what is driving incarceration. It's also a family and fatherhood issue. When we look at children that have a parent that is incarcerated, we know that they are more likely to end up in the criminal justice system. In fact, some 6 or 7 times more likely to end up in the criminal justice system as compared to a child that does not have a parent incarcerated. As I stated earlier, it's a community issue. Large numbers of individuals are returning to the very communities that they were originally committed to crime in. Most of these communities are disadvantaged. As we look at the state of Louisiana, the most of our returning citizens go to 3 or 4 major areas: metropolitan New Orleans, Jefferson, Baton Rouge, Caddo. And they're going back to disadvantaged areas. That is why I'm so encouraged as I see a turnout like we have today, especially as it relates to community resources, faith and community-based organizations. That is key to helping us to succeed with the population that is returning to our society. You know, for many years, corrections, as I stated, has been a big ship. And for many years, we've pretty much tried to go it alone. You know, we're the experts. We got this. Did not invite in individuals and organizations to help and assist. But we're recognizing as corrections, we need partners such as you to help and assist us to alleviate the problems that we have with the mass incarceration here in the state of Louisiana. Next slide, please. And also you look at, it's an employment issue. Most of the individuals that come into our correctional system, they did not have employment. If they were employed, they were employed at jobs that paid minimum wage. So it's important that when individuals leave our correctional setting, that they have a job that pays a livable wage. I'm encouraged by some of the talk that is going on now regarding all of the jobs that is going to be coming available in the southwest Louisiana in that Calcasieu corridor, where that's projected to be thousands of jobs over the course of the next 10 years. But you know, the returning citizens are being talked about prominently insofar as filling some of those jobs. We're kind of shifting gears as it relates to one of the prisons that we closed in the Calcasieu Beauregard area, Phelps Correctional. We'll reopen in Phelps, but not as a prison. We will be reopening Phelps as a work release, a transitional work program, that some individuals that go there, They will already have the prerequisite job skills that are needed to help meet the demands of business and industry in that Calcasieu corridor. Other individuals we will train in welding and carpentry and other skilled craft positions, thereby giving them a chance to earn monies that will help take care of their family, help pay child support, help pay restitution, and also give them a greater opportunity for success whenever they do return to our communities. You know, many offenders that coming to our correctional setting, they are homeless. And some of them, when they go back out, they are homeless. We need communities and resources where offenders that are released have a place to go. Our goal is not to release anyone into homelessness. And of course, reentry is important also as we look at education. There's a direct correlation between the prison pipeline and education or a lack thereof. When we look at average 7th or 8th grade level, and we have to do better insofar as preparing those individuals and providing them with opportunities to better their education while we have them. Next slide, please. And you'll see reentry touches just about everything. We look at juvenile justice issue. As I stated earlier, we want to slow that prison pipeline at the earliest possible opportunity that we can. Well, when we look at juveniles in our justice system, approximately 100,000 juveniles are released from custody facility each year. And when you look at the return to incarceration rate, 50 to 75%. And eventually, those juveniles, they end up in the adult system. So that is why, as we say, the desperate need for reentry. We need to look at every gambit of everything that's out there. It's a veteran issue. Had the opportunity to be at Angola on Sunday night with a veterans program. Today, in the state of Louisiana, we have almost 1,600 veterans that are incarcerated either in state prisons and our local jails. So it's as we look at mass incarceration, as you can see, it really does not discriminate against anyone. And as it relates to reentry and why it's so important, you know, these individuals, as I stated, will be returning to our communities. And we need to do all we can as a society, as a community, to make certain that we are ready to receive those individuals. Next slide, please. So reentry presents a great opportunity. Improve public safety, of course, that's always the goal. Public health, workforce, education, family, and community outcomes. As we have heard about the budget cuts, you know, and budget and all that's very important. But as I stated earlier, to me, it's more about humanity. As we look at the United States of America, the freest country in the world, we can do better. We are starting to do better. It's not going to change overnight, but we are beginning to make some changes. As I stand before you here today, as we look at, we have 1,700 fewer individuals incarcerated now than we had 18 months ago. Now, I could stand here and say it's because I've done a great job at reentry, and I'll take credit for that. But it's not just because of that. It's because of individuals like the communities that are stepping up to the plate, the Reentry Alliance that has been built here in Baton Rouge, the Reentry Alliance that has been built in the Monroe area, the Shreveport area. All of that is important as it relates to the success of reentry. So to improve outcomes, communities have to be able and ready to accept and receive these individuals. And all in all, I think we're headed in the right directions. I think that we are on track, but I'm reminded about what Will Rogers said about being on track, and that is you can be on track, but you'll still get run over if you just stand there. So our challenge is to continue to move forward, and have no doubt with help from individuals and organizations, we can move the state of Louisiana forward and get off of every bad list there is. We seem to occupy #1 in almost every bad list. But with your help, we will continue to change that. Thank you.